This is a 2004 Yamaha 92 stroke that has been sitting for a few years and then went through a hurricane, and we're going to try and start it. Before you try and start anything that has been sitting for a while, we need to take the spark plugs out and put some lubricate inside of the cylinders to lubricate the piston rings and the cylinder walls and everything inside the engine. We're going to turn it over by hand to move that lubrication all over the metal because it's all dry. All I have is some chain and cable lube, PB Blaster, WD-40, any kind of lubrication would work for this. You just need to make sure that we get some kind of oil inside the cylinders. Spark plugs look clean, not any kind of rust or dirt or water in there. All right, let's turn it over really nice so it wasn't locked up. I don't think that we have, you notice that there's no water pushing out of the cylinder, so we don't have water in the engine. That's good. I was concerned about that because it did float through a hurricane, and that is a very good possibility. I mean, the thing went through like a 12-foot surge or something like that, so it just floated up, and yeah, this is a good thing. Just keep squirting oil into the cylinders, and we're going to roll it over a couple more times. We've got the engine lubed up, so now what we need to do is get power and clean fuel. So first thing, since the boat's been sitting, there is no battery, so we're going to need to get a battery, clean these ends up real quick just to get them nice, and then we're going to try and pump some fuel out here to see what kind of fuel that we have to get good clean fuel to the engine. Okay, looks like we've got power. Now that we've got power, we're going to go ahead and check for fuel. I'm going to take a jar here and we're going to prime some fuel out of here. I'm also going to take that separator off, and then we'll dump the water separator off just to get anything that's in here out, and we'll pump a little bit of fuel out, maybe even a full jar, just to check to see what kind of fuel we're going to be feeding to the engine. Oh yeah, that's not good. Not good at all. Yeah, that's not good. Now, since we're going to be replacing the fuel lines from the engine all the way up here, we're going to go ahead and just put a primer bulb straight to the pickup, and we're going to siphon fuel out like that because we don't want to use that dirty water separator and then introduce any of this into the fuel system along with any of this stuff like this. So we need to pump out straight from the tank into our jar and see what the fuel looks like, and then we're just going to hook straight up to the engine using a spare line straight from the pickup of the fuel tank, so we know we got good clean fuel going straight to the engine and not dealing with any of the rest of this stuff right here, which could be a potential problem. We are going to need to clean the carburetors already, so for right now, to start the engine, we're just going to get good clean fuel to it and see what we can do. In order to start a prime, what we need to do is hold the primer ball with the arrow facing vertically up, squeeze it, put our finger on top, let it suck, push the air out, let it suck, push the air out, let it suck, push the air out, let it suck. And we'll get fuel to come out like that, and this is a problem. This is straight water. So our next problem is going to be this right here, which is a tank full of water. If you can see the separation there, there is some fuel on top, but it's really old, it's really nasty. There's nothing but water on the bottom, so we're going to have to pump out a lot of this water and fuel out of this fuel tank. All right, there we go. That's burnable. All right, so we got about 5 gallons of water out of the tank, and we finally got to, you know, not the best looking fuel. It doesn't smell like it is that great, but obviously it's old, it's been sitting. I think that our 2-stroke here will actually burn this fuel. So now we just have to dispose of this, but this is enough to where we can hook this up to the engine and hopefully get this thing to start. Well, it looks like the water separator has not been changed since August of 2021, so going on 2.5 or 3 years almost, so not too terrible. But knowing what the fuel looks like everywhere else in the boat, we need to take this off, and we're going to drain the carburetors. So there's a little bolt right here. Let me take the intake off, and we'll take those drains out, pump some fuel in there to push anything that's in the carburetors out to get that, you know, old but fresher fuel into the carburetors. These are the drains to the carbs. These are just a 10mm bolt, so we're going to take the 10mm out. I prefer using the socket, not a flathead. You can put a flathead on there, but this is a really soft metal, so I would not advise doing that. I would put the wrench or the socket on there. We're going to take those out, squeeze the primer bulb, and put some fuel to it to push anything that's in there out. All right, so now that we've got good clean fuel to our carburetor, something else that we need to do, since it's been sitting, you see how this throttle is? It's like barely moving at all, and the throttle plates aren't opening all the way. They're very tight, so what we need to do is spray these down with some lubricant and work these back and forth, spray some stuff in there on the throttle plates to get this to free up and allow it to open the throttle valves all the way open. I sprayed everything down, but it's still not seeming to be wanting to open all the way. We need to get back into here. There's another throttle linkage back there, so we need to get back there and mess with that. But something that I'm also noticing, if you can see in here, you see how open that throttle plate is? It looks like somebody at some point in time must have adjusted this, because those are like really open for, you know, being sitting at idle. So if we were to start this thing up, it would probably rev up really high really quickly. Not sure why this is linked like that, but what I'm going to do, I'm just going to undo this linkage right here, just so that way we can let these throttle plates close, so we can try and start it without it just revving up and going to a very, very high idle. Now we've got the oil tank out of the way, you can kind of see this linkage right here. Try to get in there where you can see it. It's this right here is the linkage, and it's just a rod that goes down over to here, and what that is that is what runs the oil pump down there. So we're going to lube up the oil pump and see if we can't get everything to start moving freely, to get our throttle plates to open all the way open and then close all the way before we even try and mess with anything else. There we go. Look at that. I just unhooked this right here, and with that lube on there, our throttle plates are opening all the way, closing all the way, now that we've got everything lubed up. So now what we can do is hook up some water to the flush attachment. It is going to get an impeller, so I'm not worried about that, and it's a small engine, so we just want to see if we can get the thing to start and run before we do these carburetors and service the engine and go through all that. This is just to get the engine to try and run. So let me turn the water on. Well, I would say that we have plenty of hose pressure, and then also if we look down here just on the flush attachment, you see how the water is coming out of all the tubes and where the water pickups is. So we are getting water to the impeller, coming out the prop. Plenty of power there, plenty of hose. So let's see if this thing will start. Well, it's not going to start because I don't have the control box in. So let me just hook up my key harness and we'll try and start it from back here. So even when we turn the key, nothing happening at the starter. So either it thinks it's in gear or we've got a problem with power getting to the starter, maybe the starter relay. We are going to now have to take this piece off here so we can get to the back there and see what we've got going on. All right, this was just over just a little bit, so I got this back into neutral. It thought it was in gear because of that, so now we are able to try and start it. What I'm going to do is basically pull the lanyard, and I want to run this thing over a couple of times before we put the plugs back in and start it. So that's what I'm going to do now, is squirt a little bit more lubricant into here, and we're going to pull the lanyard so that we do not have spark, and then we're going to roll the engine over a couple times. Well, it looks like it's not wanting to start, most likely fuel. We're going to go ahead and open this up to bypass. Well, never mind. Looks like we're not going to be doing that because the tab just broke off. So that tab just broke. We can't bypass that. This is probably locked up. So instead, what we're going to do is I'm going to squirt some fuel in here and see if we can get it to start by squirting fuel in the carburetors. And if we can get it to start by squirting fuel in there, then we know that our problem is with the carburetors and the engine will run. So let me try and do that, see if it'll start. I've got a water bottle with some fuel in it and some holes punched in the top of it. We're going to squirt this down into the carburetors while we turn it over and see if it will kick up and fire. Looks like she is flushed and fogged. So it looks like she does start and run. That was a full success. It looks like it was flushed and fogged at some point in time, so that's definitely good. Now all we need to do is go ahead and take these carburetors off. You could tell it had an elevated idle. There's probably something wrong with this. We're going to take these carburetors off of here, go ahead and clean them, but at least we know that the thing starts and runs, and the next video will be these carburetors.